Hey, I think I'm going to swap out my fridge, which do a residential, so I was going to document that. We obviously have some work on the outside and the inside, so let's get to it. So the fridge is the Norcold. It's the N8 XRT gas, and I guess it's 115 volt. It's worked really well for us, but last trip it didn't, so time to get rid of it. First step is to remove the trim. Today's goal is to get this out and do a good measurement of the encasement opening so we can find a good replacement. So the upper trim here is kind of interesting. It looks like Phillips, but it's really a square head screw to take that out. I haven't measured yet for the door opening, but just to make it lighter, I'm going to take the two doors off. And to do that, it's just a little screw here for each door. You can take that out and then pull it off the hinges. While I've got this door off, I thought I would tell you a hack. If your bottom hinge ever breaks, you go and get a shelf support. And what I did here is on the end, I just kind of cut it and fashioned it to the same size as the original hinge, which is plastic. It will break. And then just screw that into the bottom of the door, and then you have yourself a really good reinforcement for the hinge. You can see how it broke, but this is a hack that I learned from others that have this same refrigerator, and it's worked fine. It's just now time to replace the refrigerator. The screws on the bottom are straight Phillips head, unlike the top that were square. After you get the top trim off, there's some more square head screws up here. Funny enough, on the bottom, there's nothing. All right, there's other reasons for replacing this. As you can see, my burner can is awfully rusted. The valve sometimes fires off, sometimes doesn't. You know, it's just time, right? But we've got everything on the inside done. Now we have to work on the outside. So that's disconnecting the fuel line and capping it. Of course, you want to make sure that you've turned off your gas so that you don't have a leak when you take this off. And then there's power. So this thing is plugged into a 110 outlet right here. And if I do the 110, I'll probably just plug into that. Maybe add an inverter. I do have an inverter in the coach, which we could wire into, or we might just add a little cheap inverter and run it down to the batteries underneath the step to power that, but we'll see. Let's get going. All right, just to give you some understanding of what's going on here, you've got a green and white wire that run over and they plug in here. That's the control box. That's your 12 volt power right here, 12 volt. Probably leave this here. Let's say somebody wanted to put a gas electric back in, they'd want the 12 volts, so cap those off and stow them. This is your 110, 115, whatever it takes, as that movie said. Outlet, so we can plug the 110 unit in there, or we can connect to the 12 volt if we need. Did disconnect the gas, got to get a plug to put in there, and then of course leak test that and make sure that it's not leaking. Then I think all we have is a couple of screws like this one and a couple more, and that should free up the back of the fridge. And then as you can see, there's a bunch of insulation in there around the sides. I think we're about ready to pull it out. And you just gotta wiggle your way out. You might use something like a step stool or something to catch it, because it is pretty heavy unless you got a helper. And you end up with this and a big hole. And now this thing is supposed to be 24 inches wide, so it should fit through the 24-inch door. All right, so now we're left with a big hole. You can see all the wiring that they do, which is so nice and neat. Next step is to measure the enclosure, make sure we have the right size for whichever unit we buy to replace. Scratched up a little bit, but you know, we're going to put some trim around it anyway, probably. So I think that'll be good. Got to remember to cap off our gas line. But It didn't take too long, maybe an hour, hour and a half. My 13-year-old son helped me lug it out the door, and it did fit. One thing I didn't film because we were in the heat of the moment was the top hinge on this side. It's got 3 little screws. I think I've got it right here. So, you know, this hinge was here on the fridge. Have to take that off because just that little bit of the pin sticking out will not allow it to go through the door. So make sure you take all your hinges off. What we did is just put it on this piece of carpet and slid it over to the door and just kind of rolled it out, and it worked out really well. All right, a rainy, cold day, but here's the 12 volt. So it's a Contour 12 volt. The reason I got it was that the dimensions were perfect for fitting in the slot of the old absorption. Got it from Camping World, and believe it or not, it was delivered in 4 days. So let's see how this goes. All right, let's do the first walk around. The back is pretty clean. There's the electrical box at the bottom. It's kind of black on the sides and a darker gray on the front, which is good for me because most of my appliances are black. So I don't know, kind of cool with that, the way that looks. It is the 12 volt version. And unfortunately, the doors are still taped. I'll take those off. We'll get pictures of it inside. So the door width is 24 inches and the width of the fridge is 23.5. So we should have a 1/4 inch clearance on either side. Now, you do have to loosen the door so it'll swing fully open. I did not have to remove the door on the 31F. But the door doesn't open fully because it hits the awning arm. But it seemed to be wide enough to get the old one out, and hopefully it'll be wide enough to get the new one in. So I split my box open, and my plan is to put it in the doorway, you know, lay it down on the steps and have the sides up to kind of protect the sides, put a strap around this, and then pull it in on that cardboard. So this is the plan to pull it in. We'll see. Use the cardboard to keep it from getting scratched up, a strap around it to pull it up. We'll see if it works. Okay, that got my workout done. That wasn't terrible, except the electrical box down here did create a little bit of issue. Trying to do it by myself. Obviously, if you had someone outside helping, that would be easier. But it worked. All right, you got to know when to say when. Trying to lift this thing up into that hole by yourself isn't very easy. I even put it up on a little stool. Unfortunately, it's not quite the same height. And of course, I'm tearing up the whole bottom edge there, but that's okay. We can add some trim over that. But yeah, it sucks. So do have someone helping you, probably bringing it through the door and this. Don't try to do it by yourself, especially at age 61. You might hurt yourself. I don't know where we got on yesterday's video, but it's in. It's funny, it does stick out a little bit, the doors. But yeah, getting it in, I needed my son to help me. This is a nice thing though, because at the top there's 2 screws. You've got this piece that bolts on up there, so that you've got somewhere to screw in. There's also a piece that goes on the bottom, so they thought that out pretty well. And as you can see, a whole lot more room. I'm gonna work on the wiring next. All right, now we got to talk about wiring. So if you're doing an absorption replacement like I was, then you have 110 power that's being used for shore power. And you've got 12 volt power that runs the control board, because obviously propane when you're not on shore power. So this could be the easiest part of going 12 volt or the hardest. For me, it was the hardest. And I'll tell you why. Because this 12 volt wires set here, the green and the white, that Jayco put in, are 16 gauge. And they're perfectly good for running 12 volts to a control panel, but they are not sufficiently sized to run the compressor of the 12 volt fridge. So I had to run new 12 volt wires from here down along the chassis and to the batteries. So that kind of stinks because it was a bit of work. But what I did is I brought the 12 volt and I run it through a 20 amp fuse and up to the control board up here. And of course the ground goes up there. So that's all good and well. I'll just cap these off. Now let's say that your coach provider actually put in 10 gauge wire here. Then it would be just simply hooking these wires up and you'd be done, right? If you went 110 volt instead of a 12 volt like this one is, then you could use this outlet, but you would have to be on shore power. My coach does have an inverter, but this outlet is not on the inverter. You could install a little portable inverter, hook it up to the batteries. That's one option, but I just decided to wire directly to the batteries, and I can just turn off the fridge independently of the coach power. Now, these 12 volt wires do go back to the fuse block in the back of the coach where the AC and DC fuses are and circuit breakers. However, these 12 volt were also sharing a 15 amp fuse with a water heater and something else, I can't remember. So I wanted to have a dedicated fuse, so I put one here. Just screwed it to the back, and it's got a waterproof cover to go on it. These push-in things were great. First time I've used those. That's awesome. So yeah, now it works. So now when you open, it's got power. That's awesome. Everything seems to be running. Now we'll just give it a little time to cool off. All right, a couple of reasons I like the 12 volt that's designed for an RV. Number one, it's got a nice mounting plate up here for you to screw in, and a nice mounting plate on the bottom for you to screw in. I can run it straight on batteries. If we wanted to hook up solar, then we can do that. We don't do a lot of that, but it is an option. And the last thing that was kind of nice is it does come with a lock. So when you close the doors, you've got a lock that goes over and locks your door. So turned out pretty good. We might need to do just a little bit of trim. Actually, the two mounting things that come to mount it at the top and the bottom kind of cover some of the damage I did to the cabinetry. So pretty happy with it. The only weird thing is that the doors are really thick. So it does stick out a little bit, but maybe that's how you get the additional, I think 3.5 cubic feet of storage, because my absorption was like 7 something and this is 10.7. So yeah, you got a lot of storage. I'm gonna be looking forward in the summer to put ice cream up here and it not melt, right? Oh, it's gonna be so nice. Anyway, I hope this helped somebody else who's going from absorption to 12 volt, especially in the Jayco 31F.